welcome to the Ecology TV. This is our first day at the School of Ecology, and I am very happy to welcome Brian Ashley and Ashok Subron in our studio for this first show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thanks for joining us. So before we start in the discussion, Ashok, can you just explain to us what is the School of Ecology?
Well, like me, there are other people in Mauritius, other people in South Africa, like Brian, who have been struggling to change the world, to change society. But then we find ourselves in the middle of information and disturbing information that life on this planet is threatened. So we think that we need to organize ourselves. And in Mauritius we have lots of movement, and one of the movement is CARES, the Center for Alternative Research and Studies, to organize a space for us to understand the threats to life on the planet, the threat to the life of the people of Mauritius, the threat to the life of the people of the Indian Ocean and Africa and Southern Africa. We want to understand why life at this present moment is being threatened. What is the root causes? What causes this? Is it our way of life? Or is it the type of society that has been emerging since colonization, since a system that values money, objects, that destroy human being, that undermines nature? Is it this system that is responsible? So the school that we are having here is to discuss it, but it's to discuss these type of issues so that we can contribute to stop this threat and change society. Because like Brian and me too, I have small kids that want to live and see the life that we've been seeing for 50 years. And if you look at all the scientific reports, and we are wondering whether my little kids of 6, 7 years old, what kind of world, what kind of life, what kind of society will he believe in? And this is why the reason why we are having this discussion in the School of Ecology.
So Ashley, you are an activist. Can you tell us more about your job and how you end up in Mauritius in our School of Ecology?
Yeah, well, very much like Ashok, we have this similar type of political and activist background in movements that are struggling. In the first instance in South Africa, we're struggling against apartheid and for national liberation. And it's in those struggles that we became to realize the connection between different issues. So you can't just have democracy as a solution to oppression, but you've also got to look at the economic system that that underpins the system, or underpinned the system of apartheid, etc. And similarly today, when we look at all the different issues that are connecting, we've got to say, hang on a second, this economic system is becoming very evasive. It is not just impoverishing people, but actually destroying the very basis of life. And to be more explicit than Ashok, what we're really talking about in the School of Ecology is the system of capitalism and how it is destroying, in this very late stage that it's in now, how it's destroying people's livelihoods, how it's destroying the basis for life, that which sustains us. So in my work, in the Alternative Information and Development Center, we have a program which tries to connect the ecological and the economic aspects of our life. And we say that on both fronts, we are dealing with a process of expropriation. When we look at what is happening in our societies, more and more people are being dispossessed. That dispossession is the basis of growing inequality and impoverishment. And behind that is this insatiable drive for profits to accumulate more wealth, and that is making big inroads into the basis of our environment. So we destroy the land, the soils, we destroy the air, we destroy the rivers. And actually, I should correct myself, it's not we, but it's big corporate interests, big transnational corporations that are operating on a global scale, that are plundering our societies. And so that brings us to this school, because we feel that it's important at a Southern African level, because the problems that we're talking about cannot be resolved within our own countries. We've got to come together, forge our solidarities, but we've got to do that in a way in which we bring light into what are the systematic causes that we're facing, the problems, and to discuss, share experiences from our different struggles, which can help us give some clues to what the potential solutions are. Because I don't think any of us sitting here can say we have all the answers.
Yeah.
But I think it's through these exchanges that we have in the School of Ecology where we bring all these different struggles together. In South Africa, Zimbabwe, in Seychelles, in Mauritius, etc. I think we start to have the potential to draw some lessons and to generalize some of the common issues that we're facing.
Okay. You've been here all the time, and the School of Ecology also has a regional aspect, which is very important, like you just said. Is there a specific choice behind those countries because they have same problems, same issues, or just to have the regional aspect?
Well, I think in this school, I think we're doing something incredibly important, and that is that we're focusing on doing what we've done in previous schools, bringing people from Southern Africa together, but we're also focusing on bringing people from Indian Ocean islands together. And I think that's particularly important because those islands, these people, are faced with the gravest threat of climate change. We know that seawater rise is going to displace many millions of people. And the contradiction that we're facing, and the big dilemma that we're facing, is that whilst we can discuss about the ecological crisis, the climate crisis, and how severe it is, etc., but when you think about the discussions that are happening amongst the ruling classes and the ruling elites and what happens in our parliament, these things are not discussed. So it's, for me, an incredibly important thing where I find when I come to Mauritius, I find that there's a huge awareness of climate and environmental issues way beyond what is there amongst the population in South Africa. And I don't think it's just because we have conscious people coming to the school. I think it's a general thing, and it's a responsibility that I think that the Indian island populations have in making sure that this issue is driven onto the agenda of regional institutions. Firstly, in terms of people's movements, but using that as a basis through our mobilizations, through our struggles to bring it into the citadels of power.
We will be talking a lot about climate change, system change, but also a lot about politics. Politics has a central place in this school. why is this so central and important to talk about politics when we talk about climate change?
Because those who hold power, who hold political power, who hold economic power, they are driving the system on a global level, on a local level, that are contributing to the climate change and global warming, to the ecological crisis. So if we want to fight climate change, if we want to fight the ecological crisis, we need to fight those who controls political power and economical power, both at a global level and at a regional level and at a local level. And in Mauritius and in our region, it would mean to build the power from below. In Mauritius, it would be the fisher folks. It will be the people living on the coastal line. It will be the people, the workers working with work and labor related to the soil, to the sea. It will be the small planters. It will be the citizens who love nature, who loves land, who loves the beautiful beaches and coastal line that we have. Bringing them together to join voices with the people in Seychelles, in Madagascar, in Réunion Island, in Rodrigue Island, in South Africa, in Southern Africa, in Mozambique, to make our voices heard on regional level, at SADC level, for example. Why is climate change and ecological crisis not top on the agenda of the head of states?
Yeah.
Why climate crisis and all that we are witnessing in the ocean acidification, sea rise, the destruction that we see in the ocean, why isn't it on the agenda of the ruling elite of this region? Why the ruling elite are not putting these issues on the agenda of the international level? So this school and the movement that are in are not only learning, but also creating the space for a counterpower in our country and in the region, and contributing to develop this counterpower at global level. And it's not only kind of that we are political people, we are just human beings who want to save the life of future generation and living species on this planet.
Why is it so important today to have this kind of space for activists and people to meet and to discuss about these things? How is it important to your job, to the movement?
You see, I think that we face incredible odds. As Ashok described earlier, the huge threats that we face. Now, when we concretize that, we are talking here in the School of Ecology on the ecological crisis. And what we've said so far is that ecological crisis is underpinned by an economic system, capitalism. Now, let's ask ourselves what our governments are doing in relation to the capitalist crisis today. The basic response is, let's do more of what we were doing that brought us to the crisis. In other words, in South Africa, for example, the new president is saying, let's dig more stuff up and export it so that we can solve the economic crisis. But that just digs a bigger hole for ourselves, well, literally and metaphorically. It ensures that our soils get destroyed. We are pumping more carbon into the atmosphere. We are ruining our freshwater resources. So what happens, of course, when you do that, the coal-fired power stations that need fresh water for the coal-fired power stations are being charged more. The electricity prices go up. We undermine the very strategy of digging up more because the costs of mining go up. So we're faced with retrenchment, disinvestment, and we have a whole economic strategy that is collapsing. But we can't simply assume that people will, out of some sort of process of rationality, come to the conclusion that the very system that they are trying to keep together in this extreme period of crisis is actually the root of the problem, and that really the solutions lie at the level of redistributing wealth, coming out against the commodification of all aspects of our society, so on. If we can, through our different struggles and movements, start sharing those experiences, because our movements here, the activists that are here, are involved in struggles to expand the commons.
Ashley, we've been talking a lot about the crisis, that climate change, and that we don't have time, that time is running so fast, and we are in a crucial moment, and at the same time it feels like things are taking too much time to come together to have a response against this climate change. And besides, we know that we don't have one single solution for all the problems, and each country, each community have their own way of responding. And how do we manage in all this?
No, I think that first of all, we really got to have a sense of optimism in a very difficult period. I don't think we've been in such a period since perhaps the 1930s, just before the Second World War, and that should give us a sense of what we're up against. And so your point about urgency is very important. But things change very quickly, and today we're sort of in a period in which the right wing, and I would even say fascist forces, are rising quite rapidly. But they're rising on the desperation of people. Desperation of people who have been dispossessed. And so just as we can look back and say that when we talk about the Arab Spring, it rose from nowhere, nobody predicted it. It seems to me that some of these social explosions can happen very rapidly. And that is why I think it's important what we're doing here, because the activists are here are going to have to relate to those social explosions as they emerge in their own societies. And so I think we arm people in how to respond and to give hope and to give perspective, because that's what's lacking in this particular period. I think people don't have a sense of what an alternative can be. I'm talking not about us sitting here, but I'm talking about at a kind of mass level. And I think we are in a period in which the idea, the belief in big, mega, emancipatory change, you know, many of us in previous periods we were kind of convinced that socialism would come and, you know, there would be this big social. Well, I think we're living in a period in which for masses of people, they've lost that. There's no credibility in those big type of solutions. So I think it's in those everyday struggles, because you can have the Arab Spring thing, which encompasses the entire society in the whole region, etc. But you also have social explosions at a very local and contained level. And I think there's a link between the two processes. And if we must relate to the the small social explosions that are happening in our schools, in our factories, in our communities, and we must be testing our capacity to be able to say to people, we can suggest that the problems of mass unemployment, the problems of lack of access to basic services, and the problems of the destruction and spoliation of our environment. These things can be affected, altered, can be dealt with when we have control over our society, when we take control over the management of everyday life. And I take lots of hope from what I saw in things like the Arab Spring as an example. I'm just using it as an example. Because for a moment, people were managing their lives on a daily basis, and massively there was a festival, really a festival of the oppressed, and they felt empowered, and nothing, there were no limitations in that period. They could dream of a completely different society. Similarly, in the movements of the occupation in Spain, in the United States, in many different parts, in Brazil and so on, the possibility to dream of another society. And I think that's, if we can reinstall that and connect that to people's day-to-day struggles and activism, I think we have a hope.
So to continue on a good note, when we talk about hope, this school is also about hope, about a place, a space to dream of the society where we want to live in, this kind of society we want to live for our kids.
If we let this, the system dominates the people and dominates, the web of life on the planet, everything will be destroyed. And I have lots of hope because I sincerely believe that human beings love their children. Human beings love nature. And it's this love for life, this love for human beings, and this love for the web of life that is and will be the centrality of the, I would say, a new politics that is emerging from the recognizance of this deep crisis, ecological crisis, which is the biggest, of all the crises. And we are talking now about survival issues, okay, about life, and the reaction of the masses, of the people, once they start realizing what is at stake. I think it would be very it might be violent, but deep inside this violence there is love, because this is the driving force to reshape society, to reorganize society on a new basis. And we have to do it because time is going, as you say. Okay, there's an urgency, there's a planetary emergency, there is a societal kind of urgency to reorganize itself. And new movements are emerging. In Mauritius you will see more and more youngsters, you will see more and more people organized around ecological issues and around issues like beach scrubbing. Not far away from here, 500 meters from here, on the Labor Day, okay, workers, youngsters, ecologists came together for civil disobedience. And it was with, it's a contradiction, it might seem a contradiction. It was with love, okay, that we destroyed the fence that was destroying this public space and natural spaces. So there was no violence. It was we had huge, massive support because other people in the country see what we are doing to what they might or will be doing in the coming, period. So there are lots of hope, but this hope, how would it express itself? I don't really know, but I think it would be around these kind of new movements that we are seeing in Mauritius, that we have seen even in the United States, that we will be seeing in many countries around when social issues, ecological issues, and environmental issues all come together on one single, fundamental issue. It's the maintenance of life. Okay, the school is a school. Okay, it's a place to learn. And one of my comrades likes to say, education is, is a process of learning, okay, unlearn and relearn. So the school gives this space for all of us who are activists or youngsters to do this process. And then the school creates the space for the movement to take, from here, then to develop. And I can say that the school, for example, for Mauritius, has been very instrumental in shaping, for example, the politics of resistance and alternatives, the politics of many of the union movement who are now more and more involved on ecological issues. And the school has been instrumental, has been a tool to shape the emerging kind of ecological political consciousness in Mauritius. And I can see that the same dynamic has started in Rainier Island, for example, concretely. After the school, last school, and after the event of the first disobedience that we had here
At Pomponet
Beach, the youngsters and some of the people that were in the school participated in the same kind of civil disobedience in Rainier Island, against beach scrapping. And there was a kind of connection, but it wasn't on the agenda of the school. It is a school, but it creates the space to share experiences for the movement to grow. And in Mauritius too, we are learning from our comrades in South Africa. And so, changes also comes from education.
And Brian, as part of your work in South Africa, how does this school merge with your work? Have there been any direct action from what you learned from here to back to South Africa?
It propels us to give lots of thought to linking local to the global, the micro to the macro. We can't have a struggle for basic services and then not talk about the ecological dimensions under which those services could or should be delivered. So in that sense, I think it has a direct role. It reinforces it, it reinvigorates it. The solidarities that come here, I was speaking to one of the international guests who experiences the solidarity, not just in the learning process, but in the way in which we interact over how we deal with this dinner and the cleaning and all of these things. These are manifestations of our humanity that sometimes gets lost. And we are recovering it in a school like this. And that then inspires what we do, how we organize, how we do a school of ecology in South Africa. It takes from the experiences here. And I want to emphasize the point that Ashok made about the school being a political place, because I think it's extremely important, and I don't want us to become myopic and have a sense that it's just one way and we have lots of schools and then everybody will be educated and then we'll change the world. It's not going to be like that. And I think we face many challenges, and we face the problems of many types of division. But here in the school, it makes it difficult for us to come and regurgitate our prejudices. So we come into society, we're educated through all the crap of the media, and we reinforce our sexist behavior, our racist behavior, and so on. But in a space like this, it's also a challenge to that. And I think that's very important, because there are these divisions, racism, sexism, misogyny, etc., that make it very difficult to bring about the unity of those that are affected, poor, oppressed, working people, by the system, and to be able to focus on the system rather than focusing on, as often happens in South Africa, for example. No, the problem is not the system, it is the foreigners who are coming to take our jobs, etc. So we come here as Southern Africans, who come here as people and human beings, and we are in this way, both in terms of the curriculum of the school, the methodologies, and the experiences. We're learning to be different types of people, and that is vital. Now, of course, we can only influence the number of people that attend the school, but each one of us go back and we take that learnings into movements. That's why in this process of the school, we emphasize people not coming as individuals, but they come through movements, and there's a process in their movement of selecting them, of engaging with what the School of Ecology is about. And I think that thing is extremely important. And it's extremely important that it is Southern African. And we've got to preserve that in spite of all the logistical and financial challenges. But that is extremely important because solidarity is the key to resolving the crisis that we have. The more that we can engender solidarity, the more we can weaken the system and bring about a mass base for an alternative.
Thank you, Brian. Ashok, a final word just to wrap it.
Fruitful, rich of experience, and the way of life of the school is always inspiring for me personally, for me, the people here. So we'll go, the whole week. The first part of the school will end on Sunday, and then mainly the international people here will go and visit the sites of struggle, biodiversity, struggle, the history, Le Monde, our district, and then we'll have the Indian Ocean Conference on next Tuesday, on the 30th and the 31st, in Port Louis Maritime Academy. And if there are people who want to come, just give us a call. You're all welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.